Hey guys, I just want to let you know I am super proud of you and how hard that you've been working on all of your math. Coming up this week we do have a quiz, so I want to do some review notes. Please make sure that you have printed off the attachment or you're looking at the attachment and doing it on notebook paper as we do these notes. This should help you for your quiz this week. Please remember also when taking a quiz you cannot use your notes. So I want to know what you know from memory, so just make sure you take a few minutes, study it before you actually take and submit your quiz. I hope you guys are doing okay with online learning. I miss you all and I really truly do wish we were together. So the first problem we're going to do today is finding the perimeter. If you remember, finding the perimeter simply means to find the distance around the outside of the shape. So looking at this, I am just looking to see how long is the outside of this shape. There's only one little section that we don't know, and that's this part right here. So I want you to see if you can figure out how in the world you're supposed to figure that. If you look at this, that says it's 5 feet. Over here, we only know that that's 2 feet, which means this right here needs to add up to 5 feet. So 2 plus what equals 5 feet? Hopefully, even without your calculator, you were able to see that this is 3 feet. So in order to find perimeter, I would love it if you guys would start with P equals, so you know this is your perimeter. You're going to start with adding up 5 plus 6 plus 2 plus 3 plus 3. All right, so make sure you're writing this down in your notes. I would like to also see that you are writing down each step just like we would in class, and all you're going to do is add those together. And 5 plus 6 is 11, plus 2 is 13, plus 3 is 16, plus 3 more is 19 feet. All right, then go ahead, box your answer in. The perimeter equals 19 feet. Next up is the area of the composite figure. So we're trying to figure out how much all the stuff in the middle of this shape is. Now remember, a composite figure is simply meaning it's two different figures that are put together. So what you have to do, we're going to start with A equals, we have to figure out what the two figures are that are here. Notice the first one, it's 12 by 14. So it's not a square because all the sides are not the same. Instead it would be a rectangle. All right, so I'm going to add that together combined with this other shape over here. There's another shape, and what's the other shape? It is a triangle. Okay, so we're going to be adding up a rectangle plus a triangle. In order to do this, you have to remember what the area of those particular formulas is. So area of a rectangle is going to be length times width. And then area of a triangle, you should still have these ones memorized, is 1/2 times base times height. So now as we look at this, let's look at, just focus on the rectangle for right now. The length is going to be 14 centimeters. The width is 12 centimeters. So we are simply multiplying those two together, 14 times 12. Plus, now let's focus on our triangle. We know we're going to bring down our half, and then you've got to look to see what the base is. The base is down there at the bottom of that right angle, 8, and then the height is going to be 12. So we're just multiplying times 8 times 12. All right, so as you work this out, I want you just to pause the video and try to do this on your own instead of me giving you the answers. All right, so when you plug into your calculator 14 times 12, you're going to get 168 plus half of 8 times 12. You know right here 8 times 12 is 96. So half of 96 is going to be 48. All you have to do to find the area now is add those two together, and you will end up with 216 centimeters squared. Remember, you can also write it 216 square centimeters. Whenever it is on your quiz, I'm going to go ahead and give you this part already. I'm going to say it's blank square centimeters, so you, for your quiz, will only have to write that number inside of the blank. All right, so next up you can see I've got a figure over here that we looked at way back in 9.1. And this is just kind of helping us to remember and understand that the radius is from any point in the center to the edge of the circle, whereas the diameter is actually double that because it goes all the way around the circle. And then remember, the circumference is simply the distance around the circle. It's basically like the perimeter of a circle. So this first question asks us, find the radius of a paper plate with a diameter of 9 inches. So we know right here the diameter is 9, but I don't want to know the diameter. I only want to know the radius. So in order to find that, you're simply going to cut it in half because the radius is always half of the diameter, which means 9 divided by 2 is going to give us 4.5 inches. So this is kind of a simple problem, 4.5 inches. This one for number 4 is kind of like the opposite of what we just did. It asks us to find the diameter of the circle. So we know already it has told us that the radius is going to be 10 inches. In order to figure out, that was only half right here. I want to figure out what it would be extending all the way across. So you're simply going to double it. The diameter is going to equal 20 inches. All right, so the first thing you want to do with each problem is just identify whether it gives you the diameter or the radius. This gives us the diameter because it goes all the way across the circle. So we know our diameter is going to be 9 feet. It asks us to find the circumference. There are 2 formulas for finding circumference. One is C equals pi times d, or C equals 2 pi r. So for the circumference, you're just going to look to see what was it given. It gives us the diameter, so we are going to go ahead and use this formula right here. And in the instructions, it asks us to use 3.14 for pi. So C equals 3.14 times the diameter, and our diameter is 9. Plug that into your calculator. When you do that, you're going to get 28.26 feet. The instructions for number 6 ask us to find the area of the circle. Once again, identify first whether it gives you the diameter or the radius. It's all the way across, so that is going to be our diameter, which means the radius is exactly half of that if I only want from here to there, and that's going to be 7 feet. So now, once again, you've got to make sure you've got these formulas memorized, but if I'm going to use the formula for finding the area of a circle, it's going to be A equals pi r squared. So we're going to go ahead and use 3.14 and multiply it times 7 squared. If you remember PEMDAS, it tells us that we want to go ahead and do the square before we do anything else. So this is going to be A equals 3.14, and 7, remember this does not mean 7 times 2, it means 7 times 7, which is 49. Once again, you are allowed to use your calculators on these quizzes. So go ahead and multiply those together. You're going to get 153.86. And in your instructions on your actual paper that you're filling out, it asks you to round to the nearest whole number. So if you remember, this right here is the whole number. It asks the number in the 10th place if it's 5 or bigger. Because it says, yes, my 153 is going to go ahead and bump up to 154. Now we know this is feet, but because it's finding the area, we're going to go ahead and square the units. This next question is very similar to number 6, but the difference is the last one was a circle and this is a semicircle. If you remember, a semicircle simply means it is a half of a circle. So instead of the regular formula where we have A equals pi r squared, since it's a half a circle, we're going to go ahead and divide it by 2. So remember, let's start off our problem with this is the diameter because it is all the way across the circle. So the diameter is going to be 24 inches. Which means that the radius, if I want just half of that, is going to be 12 inches. So now let's just start plugging some things in. Over here, I've got A equals pi. Instead of pi, I'm going to put 3.14. We just discovered that our radius is 12. We're going to square those units, and still we have to divide everything by 2 because it is a semicircle. A lot of times what people tried to do in class when we did this before was they would say, oh, I can reduce this. You're actually not allowed to reduce that because you have to do PEMDAS first, which tells us before doing anything else, I have to make sure that I square my units. So let's start with that right now. What is 12 squared? It doesn't mean 12 times 2. It means 12 times 12, so 144. At this point, you could cross-reduce these ones right here if you wanted to. You do not have to. You could just multiply across and understand that 3.14 times 144 is 452.16. Once again, remember, you've still got to divide by that 2 right there. We're going to divide by 2, and this will give us our final answer, which is 226.08. Now, on your quiz, please remember, go back to the instructions to see, does it say something like what it has to be rounded to? That's where people are going to lose some points, and I don't want to see you lose points. So, if I were to round this to the nearest whole number, once again, I'm going to take the whole number, that's the part before the decimal point, and it's going to ask this one, are you 5 or bigger? The 0 obviously says no, so the 226 is just going to stay the same, and my correct answer is 226 inches, and we're going to square our units because it is the area. All right, so the last section down here, I've got some different angles. We learned this in 9.5. So this section on 9.5, the front page of your notes that you took, that's the section that I'm going to really be focusing on the quiz and the test. There was a second page of notes on 9.5, which were the final notes that you took. You do not need to study those because I am not going to test you over that final page of notes from 9.5. So this is going to be the final section that we're going to be reviewing before the end of this video. I want you to look at this angle right here. You can see that it is along a straight line. There's only one set of angles that's along the straight line, and that is always going to be our supplementary angles. Now, one thing that we've learned about a straight line is the number of degrees it equals. Does anyone remember? Try to think of what that is. If you don't know it, look back to your notes, okay, instead of me just trying to tell you. But if you know, you would know that it equals 180 degrees, which means 117 degrees plus x degrees is going to have to equal 180 degrees. So now the whole goal always is to get x by itself because we're solving for x. So we're going to subtract that 117 so the x can be alone. When you do this, you're going to subtract it and you see that x equals 63 degrees. So this is a two-part. Be careful on those homeworks. Make sure if it's a two-part, you're always answering both parts. So that's an example of supplementary angles. Now there's another kind. The angles that look like this. This is a 90-degree angle. Remember, we can tell that because of this little box that's right there that tells us that that's 90 degrees. So when we know 90 degrees, those are called complementary angles. And one thing that we know is I have to add both of these together to equal that 90 degrees. So in order to do this, we're simply going to do 4x plus 2x equals 90 degrees. So now obviously these two can be combined together. 4x plus 2x equals 6x. And you want to get that x by itself, so we've got to do the opposite of multiply by 6, which is what that says. We're going to divide by 6. Which equals 15 degrees. All right, then go ahead and box your answers in for me. We have one last and final problem. It's the last kind of angles that we haven't talked about. So anytime that you have angles that are opposite of each other, like these ones are, they're going to equal each other. Those kinds of angles, whenever you've got the angles that come together and at the vertex they meet right here, those are going to be called vertical angles. Now, as I said just a minute ago, those angles equal each other, so we can just do 7x equals x plus 42 degrees. If you remember, there is an understood number right here. Does anybody remember what that is? Look at how many x's there are. There's only one x there, okay? So you can put that in if that helps you. But your whole goal is to get x by itself, which means I need to get this x over to that side. Right now I'm adding 1x. In order to get rid of it, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 1x from both sides to be fair. This cancels out. I'm left with 7x minus 1x, which equals 6x. And then all that's left on the right side is 42. We're going to drop it down. Now I want this to be by itself. That says 6 times x, so the opposite would be divided by 6. So your correct answer is 7 degrees. So guys, be sure to study these notes, study your Chapter 9 notes, and please be honest. Do not use your notes for the quiz when you take it. Your integrity and your character is worth more than just getting a good grade. So study, do just like you would for class, and please be honest. Do not use your notes for it, but you can use your calculator. And good luck. I hope you all do well.